In 2012, a family in central Java followed an address supplied by a woman named Sri Wahyuningsih. They were carrying wedding gifts. They expected a house. They found a tree. No gate, no roof, no bride. Just a great banyan growing beside a reservoir called Waduk Lalung, with a spring beneath it. The family searched more than once. Police from 2 local stations reportedly helped check the location. Nothing resolved the mystery. Nobody nearby knew of a house belonging to Sri. Every search led back to the same tree and the water below, so the family asked the only people left to ask. And the residents gave them an answer nobody in that family was prepared to hear. Sri, they said, was not a woman living nearby, not someone known to have died beside the tree, not a ghost the police could confirm. The residents believed she was a Peri, a being associated with the Banyan and the spring below it, the way you or I might be associated with an address. By 2023, folklore researchers were recording and analyzing the story as part of the region's oral tradition. Under a name that endured, the mystery of the Fairy of Waduk Lalung. Nobody has proven that Sri was an ordinary woman. Nobody has proven that she was anything else. And the question is not only whether she existed, it is how a community came to understand a tree as an address for the unseen. Because in Java, that relationship has a vocabulary of its own. English often flattens every unseen presence into one word: ghost. Javanese tradition preserves more precise categories. A dhanyang may watch over a settlement, a guardian tied to a place. A penunggu is a resident presence, something understood to inhabit or wait within a location. Mbaureksa carries the sense of watching over a place and preserving its order. None of these terms automatically means the wandering dead. None automatically means something intent on hurting the living. Trouble often begins when a relationship is broken. Someone cuts a branch without permission, draws water and gives nothing back, enters carelessly, or mocks what is believed to live there, behaves in short as though no one else has a claim upon the place. Their documented tradition shows how seriously that relationship can be treated, not buried inside an anonymous ghost story, but connected to a real site near Yogyakarta and to memories of a royal court. The tree is called Wringin Sepuh, the elder Banyan. Cultural records name 2 guardians believed to inhabit and protect it, Nyai Panggung and Kiai Kosa. The records describe offerings made at the tree, both as requests for help and as expressions of thanks when something asked for was granted. The sources do not tell us precisely what, if anything, happens there today. One local legend reaches further, connecting the tree to Sunan Kalijaga, one of the best-known figures associated with the spread of Islam in Java, and to servants of Panembahan Senopati. That thread is legend, not independently verified history. But notice what the legend reaches toward: not a random traveler, not an unnamed shopkeeper, saints, rulers, a royal court. This tree is remembered in the language people use for power. Which leaves one question hanging. Why does a story like this keep circling back to a banyan? Here is the part most retellings skip, and the part that helps everything after it makes sense. The exact species behind these stories has not been confirmed, but some banyan-form figs share a strange growth pattern. They lower roots from their branches, straight through open air, and when one finally touches soil, it can thicken into a supporting trunk. Given enough time, you lose track of where the original tree ends. What looks from a distance like a small grove may be one organism wearing many bodies. Stand beneath one at dusk and the roots stop looking like roots. They begin to resemble walls, doorways. The frame of a house nobody built, because nobody had to. The tree grew its own rooms and never stopped. That proves nothing about spirits. What it does is give a spirit somewhere to enter, then place the tree's age on top of that. A taboo against damaging a banyan can outlive everyone who remembers it being planted. Every generation inherits the same shade and quietly adds one more warning before handing it on. Walk beneath a mature banyan and something changes. Less light reaches the ground. The air may hold more moisture than the road you just left. Sounds from the village seem to arrive from farther away, as though the tree were filtering them on the way in. You are still standing inside the village. It simply stops feeling as though the village has complete authority over the ground beneath your feet. And some significant banyans appear in the same kinds of places, beside springs at crossroads, within palace landscapes, or in public squares, places where people already gathered, crossed from one condition into another, and paused before going further. Form, age, shade, water, ritual protection, strategic position, and inherited memory accumulate in one living place. Eventually, the guardian is not merely imagined inside the tree. Tree, presence, and community fold into a single address. And nowhere is the Banyan's relationship with authority clearer than at the center of political power. Inside Yogyakarta's royal alun-alun, the great public square facing the Sultan's palace, stand Banyans that are deliberately named, enclosed, and maintained. They were not left to grow wild at the dark edge of town. They stand in full daylight, at the center of the court's symbolic world. In documented Javanese interpretations, the Banyan can mark a meeting point between the sea, physical and unseen worlds, its crown spreading above, its roots descending into the earth. Within a royal square, the tree can embody protection, authority, and the unity of ruler, people, and sacred order. The unease a traveler may feel beside a lonely banyan after dark, and the reverence surrounding a palace banyan are not identical practices. But they can grow from a related understanding. This tree stands where visible life and unseen authority meet. One tree form, two very different relationships to power. And then there is the water. Across more than one documented Javanese sacred place example, banyans and springs form part of the same complex. Water sustains life, but within these settings it may also carry meanings of purity, healing, or fertility. Place a guardian within that landscape, and drawing water is no longer only a physical act. It becomes a relationship, approached with gratitude, caution, or permission. Older reports associate the Waduk Lalung story with a banyan and a spring, but no current field record confirms the exact tree-spring access or ritual practice today. That gap is real and it should remain open. These documented examples nevertheless suggest a wider Javanese pattern. The sites do not share one universal rite, but tree, water, guardianship, and sacred meaning can gather in the same place. Certain banyans collect spirit stories, not simply because they are old or dark, but because the ground beneath them already matters. Which brings us back to that family, standing before an address that produced no house in 2012. Later retellings add a midwife, someone supposedly connected to an examination of Sri before the wedding. But later, oral folklore research preserves a contradiction. The midwife is reported to have said that Suprapto arrived alone, and that she did not examine Sri. So even inside the legend will not agree with itself. That is not a crack in the story that needs to be patched over. It may be the most revealing part, a reported event changing shape each time it is retold, until no one can say exactly where the first account ends and the version being told now begins. Here is what many versions of this story miss. The tree is not just where the mystery happened. The tree may be the reason the mystery survived. People die, witnesses move away, memories change, web pages disappear, but a protected banyan can outlast generations, giving the unresolved somewhere permanent, to live long after everyone who might have solved it is gone. Maybe Sri was a real woman, whose story was swallowed by rumor before anyone recorded it clearly. Or maybe, exactly as the residents believed, that address was never going to lead to an ordinary house. The evidence cannot choose between those answers for us. This film will not pretend that it can. What it can show is why the banyan holds the unknown so well. Roots that resemble rooms, age that outlasts memory, shade that changes how a place feels the moment you step beneath it, water rising nearby, and within a distant palace square, the same kind of tree standing for power itself. In Java, an old banyan is not always just a tree. Sometimes it is an address. Some addresses are still waiting for someone to knock. Save this story, subscribe for the next, and until next time, watch the roots for doorways.